podcast. I, of course, am Tommy Bolden, and joining me, as always, is Taylor Salem. Taylor, how are you doing tonight, my fine friend?
I am doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Not too shabby.
Awesome.
Thank you. Tonight's podcast is going to be kind of short, we hope, but it will be about a director who has a movie who is out right now in theaters, Lords of Salem, based on his music, I guess, by Rob Zombie, or Robert Wolfgang Zombie, whatever he calls himself now, or White Zombie, or whatever. We'd like to do a quick recap of some of the movies that he made and, put something out of what we think the new one might be, and we'll go from there. Taylor, if you'd like to take it away.
Okay, so we're just gonna kind of just go down the line here through Rob Zombie's filmography. So to start things off, we are going to talk about his first film, and the film that I think is his best, and that is House of a Thousand Corpses. So what do you think about this movie, Tommy?
I'm kind of shocked that you think that's his best movie.
I do.
Essentially, I can see where you're coming from from there.
Yeah.
But I really, it kind of goes down the line. It gets these mixed kind of reviews, and some people really appreciate it for what it is, and then some people just look at it as just this really terrible, strange movie that they didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
But really, overall, I actually enjoyed the movie because I felt like it was an homage to old grindhouse horror films, and it really established, it was one of those things to where I think we talked about this before, where, horror was at a point where it was just doing the same old boring thing. And so he kind of just threw this gore-filled, weird, grindhouse-esque horror movie out there.
Yeah, I completely have to agree. Actually, in particular, the movie it really reminds me of is the original Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because that movie, I'm sure you know this, how low of a budget that movie had. It was like $27,000 or something. Of course, this is 1970, dollars, so there's inflation and all that stuff. But and it really reminds me because that movie kind of creates like this gritty, grimy, nasty aesthetic to the look of the movie. Like it's just a really ugly movie to look at. And I think that's an intentional choice. And it feels like Zombie, that was really an influence for him as the original Texas Chainsaw, because I know he's a huge horror fan. And so it seems like, especially with the first one, he tried to cull a lot of influences and put them all into one movie that kind of pays homage to those, those movies really. But I don't know. It's obviously, I mean, you're not going to deny, and I even attest to this, I think it's his best movie, but let's start off with saying that House of a Thousand Corpses has absolutely no story whatsoever. This is a movie that doesn't rely on story. It relies on the visuals. And I think they're interesting, even though, like I said, they're kind of ugly to look at. There's some interesting mythology being created, though, too, with those visuals. Like, I love the whole idea of, like, Dr. Satan. Like, that was my favorite part about the movie, is that it tried to create, like, this kind of a Michael Myers-esque mythology about this character, even though Dr. Satan has kind of a small part in both the movies, this and the sequel, which is the one we'll be talking about next. But yeah, man, I have to agree. It's not perfect by any means, but I still think it's for a first time film. I think it's actually pretty good.
Not only that, but for him to be, he pretty much funded it himself, which I'm not going to say he's made millions and millions and well, I mean, he's made millions of dollars, of course, but, for him to fund it himself, he's dipping into his own pocket. So, he kind of just said, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it because I'm funding it. No one's going to tell me what to do. And sometimes that can be a problem. But with him, I really didn't see it. And as for the visuals, I think you're really correct. It had this really dirty, grimy, it almost seemed like trailer park white trash horror film feel to it. And, I really think I really think, like you said, the story was really kind of off, but he created a lot of characters that are going to stay kind of burned into my brain.
Yeah.
And saying that, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to the three characters who were the most memorable for his next movie, which is The Devil's Rejects. And I will let you go from there.
Okay. So I have to admit, it's been about 2 or 3 years since I've seen The Devil's Rejects. But when I remember when I watched it, the thing that irritated me the most about Rob Zombie, I mean, the first movie, House of a Thousand Corpses, was pretty self-indulgent, but The Devil's Rejects is more so. It's so much more self-indulgent. And I think one of the culprits of that is bringing Sherry Moon Zombie, who is Rob Zombie's wife in real life, into like a main leading type of role. And
right.
I mean, let's be honest, she can't act. He's been in all of her. I don't remember if he was in Halloween 2, but he's been in most of her movies. Okay, so he's been in all of her movies. Okay, and I think that's
animated one.
And I think that's a little too self-indulgent for my taste. I mean, to think this girl is right for every single role in every one of your movies is kind of an ignorant thing. And I think in the end it kind of drags him down as a director in a way, because he's tied to this person even though they're married in real life. And I don't know, I don't want to get into their social stuff or whatever, but that's the big sinner for me in this one was making Sherry Moon Zombie one of the main characters.
Right, I can kind of agree with you on that. At the same time, I can kind of disagree, because I kind of know what he's doing. It's one of these things to where, every director has that one actor or actress who they constantly will cast, no matter what the movie, no matter what the premise or anything. And he kind of, even though, I feel like her acting is really kind of weak, she's more or less eye candy, I guess you could say, for for anybody who really watches it, because she really pulls in all this, like I said for the first movie, all this kind of white trash feel. I'm not calling her a white trash woman. I don't think she's anything like that in real life. From what I heard, she's a pretty nice person, but she kind of pulls in all this feel of what he really wants to do, and that's just this nasty kind of feeling. And he had no problem with, throwing her ass almost in every single pictorial shot of the second movie. I kind of didn't understand that, but that, and I really felt like the movie as a whole was really good. It was really strong. The story was really strong. He got away from that creepy kind of horror vibe and really went with this gritty action gore fest. And I really thought the characters were really enjoyable. Everybody pretty much agrees with me that saying that Otis is their favorite character, and he really is.
I was just about to say Sid Haig as Otis is just totally unbelievable, man. This guy knows exactly what kind of movies he's in, and he's just hamming it up, dude, to the max. I mean, this guy is just, he's going for it all, and that's what I love about it. Especially, I mean, that's one of the things I loved about the first movie too, House of a Thousand Corpses. He has a tiny little bit in that movie, and it was just one of the best examples. And again, it goes back to what I was saying about the mythology. Like that's the scene where they're kind of creating this mythology, and I love that scene because he's just so delightful, man. That's the only way to explain it.
One scene in particular from House of a Thousand Corpses where Otis was talking, and I think I may have misunderstood you. Did you say Sid Haig is Otis?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. No. I meant as yeah. Okay.
Sid Haig's
like I said, it's been
Spalding.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've seen it. Yeah. Otis was Bill Moseley, played by Bill Moseley.
Yes.
Yeah. I was trying to make sure I wasn't losing it or anything. Yeah. But it's fine. Yeah, we mess up. Editing. But anyways, Bill Moseley really in the first movie, he said this really awesome line I thought was really cool. This guy, he was having a conversation with one of the characters, and he said one of the main characters, one of the teenagers or whatever they're being portrayed as, he says something, and Otis kind of laughs at him, and he says, "Boy," he says, "I bet you'd shove your head in fire if I told you you could see hell." And I just thought that was really awesome. But
Yeah.
a lot of fans of the second movie really called for the Academy, and I'm not kidding about this. They called for the Academy to try and get Bill Moseley an Oscar.
Wow.
You know, they thought he should be, they thought he should be Oscar nominated. And, you know, I'll even go out on a branch and feel like, you know, I felt the same way, because he really portrayed everything that this movie stood for. And not only that, but he really took it over the top. He was the most enjoyable character behind, you know, and Captain Spaulding being behind him.
Yeah.
But he was really enjoyable, and, you know, he does a lot of B-level movies, but if you ever have a chance to see some other stuff that he's really in, you know, he's actually a really good movie actor. You know, he really puts himself out there, and he tries his best to portray every single role. And he's been in a few things that I just wouldn't even recognize him in. He was in a movie with Michael Keaton about the first war that we had with Iraq, and I thought he was really phenomenal in that. I can't remember the name of that one, but it was him and Michael Keaton were playing these news reporters who were sent to Iraq, and who were in charge of filming the bombings and everything, and they were caught in the middle of everything. He did a really phenomenal job in that. He really didn't have a lot of airtime, but he really stole it away from Michael Keaton, and I thought, you know, I was like, wow, he's really impressive. And then I saw The House of a Thousand Corpses, and I was like, wait a minute, is that the same guy? So, but if there's anything else you have to say about that, that movie in particular.
I think we've made very valid points, both of us. So the next one we are going to move on to is one that I have pretty strong feelings towards, because like many horror fanatics, I consider Halloween to be one of the original John Carpenter Halloween to be one of the greatest horror films, and also, like, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't the first, but it's got to be at least the second or third slasher film that kind of really popularized that genre in the 80s.
Right.
So, of course, we're talking about the remake, the Rob Zombie remake of John Carpenter's seminal classic. And so, first, I want to hear what your thoughts are. I want to hear your argument for this movie, because I know you like this movie a lot more than I do.
Right. Well, here's the issue I have is like, you know, Halloween was kind of like it was the movie that kind of set the standard for the slasher movie. It was like Psycho created it, and then there was Halloween in the I believe it was late 70s, early 80s, and then shortly after that. Yeah, 1978, and then shortly, maybe a year or two after, you got Friday the 13th, which really, you know, put the stamp on the slasher genre. But Halloween, you know, the original focused on, you know, it focused on your mind, and, you know, it was just, it really wasn't like, there wasn't a lot of blood or gore in it, you know. It was just it was a simple babysitter scare movie, you know. The boogeyman, and, you know, what's the boogeyman, and he's coming to get you.
You have to admit, man, that there's still moments in that movie that are just fucking scary, dude. Like, I mean, I never jump, and there's moments in that movie where I still just like, you know. I'm talking, of course, I'm sure there's other things, like the closet scene, of course, but that scene where she's backing up the stairs, and then it's darkness behind her, and slowly.
Oh my god! Every time.
Yes, it's just so, it gives me chills. Like, that was when I saw that moment in Halloween. It cemented my love for horror as a child, you know, because it was just like, you know, it's just one of those moments that you never forget. And I think living up to those shoes is going to be hard for anyone.
Right.
But, you know, we kind of spoke about this before, and one of the things, of course, when Rob Zombie was offered Halloween, is he went directly to John Carpenter, and he said, you know, I need the okay from you. I need to make sure this is all right with you, Which is funny because since then, almost all of his movies besides They Live, his real famous movies, have either had sequels or have been remade. But that's another
Right.
story for another day. And so he went to
Oh
John
yeah.
Carpenter, and John Carpenter gave him the okay. He said, "You go and you make it your own." Okay, right? We both agree on
Yeah.
that. And that's been
Right.
publicized. That's everywhere over the internet if you look anything up about this movie. But the problem I have
Exactly.
is that Rob Zombie is trying to eat his cake and have it. You know, like he's trying to have
Yeah.
the best of both worlds. He's trying to make his own twist on it, and he's also trying to reinvent the Michael Myers character. You know, in a way that's the same. It's the same story, but have different twists on it in a way. You know, and
Right.
I have major problems with the whole extended, you know, first act of the movie where, I mean, okay, that I don't care about his mother, I don't care about all these people, and I know people were mean to Michael Myers, but I don't give a shit about any of this. The thing that was so scary about Michael Myers in the original was that he had
Yeah.
no backstory. You knew
He had
nothing
no
about
reason.
him. Yeah, and that makes
Yeah.
everything much, much scarier, in my opinion. And with this movie, he
Right.
gives everything a reason. And sometimes I think,
Yeah.
of course, this is like the Star Wars prequel syndrome, that giving everything a reason is always not the best option, because sometimes what you come up with in your mind is always going to be better than what that person puts on the screen. And I think
Exactly.
that's the biggest culprit of this. I mean, he uses the original score, which just reminds me of how good, how superior of a movie the original is. And I think, you know, if he wanted to make it his own, he should have not taken so many things up. I mean, he's producer on this, he's writer on this, he's director, he's composer. It's just it's
Yeah.
outrageous. And I mean, of course, John Carpenter did the same thing with his movie, but
What?
I just don't. I mean, of course, John Carpenter was more skilled too. You know, I mean, you could just tell.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but those are my big complaints. Like, sorry, I went on kind of a rant there, but they're just things
Oh,
that
no,
just
no, no, no.
really,
You're fine.
really irk me, man. They really, really bug
Right.
me.
Right. Here was something that you were saying. It was like John Carpenter told him to take the film and make it his own movie, and that's really essentially what he did. And I understand where you're coming from about one of the scariest reasons of why he did it was really because you have no logical reason of why this guy's coming to kill you. He's just coming
Yeah.
to kill you. You're
Yeah.
in his way of whatever in the hell he's after, and he's just coming to take care of you. But
Yeah.
I understand that. But in order for Rob Zombie to make a Halloween movie without it being a shot by shot remake, he essentially he had to do this, because if he didn't, then everyone would have went to the theater and they just would have said, okay, I just fucking watched Halloween, I already own this,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the same way, and I'm not going to go off on this whatsoever, and I hope you don't either.
No, that's fine. That's
but,
fine. Go ahead.
because I know it's going to touch a nerve, but it's kind of the same way with Psycho. It's just, when I took Psycho when I was a little kid and I saw the original, I thought, wow, what a great, terrifying twist, solid film, and then I heard there was a remake, and I was like, oh, there's a remake. Well, let me go watch this. And I popped it into my VHS player. That's how old this is. Popped it into my VHS player at the time. Yeah. Put it in my VHS
the good
player.
old days.
Yeah, be kind, rewind. Pop it into my VHS player, and I was like, well, this is the same film I just got done watching. I think that was something he had to do. I understand people are saying, well, Michael Myers doesn't need a backstory. Well, guys, no, he doesn't need a backstory. We get those later in those god-awful sequels to the originals. But, if Rob Zombie was going to do the film, which he had every bit of permission to do from everybody who had a part of the film, then this is the movie he had to make. He had to have a backstory, and I didn't have a problem with it because, some things are best left unknown. But, essentially I felt like this was Michael Myers, a different Michael Myers movie in a different universe. You know, I look at it from two different sides of the spectrum, and that's how I had to look at it.
Yeah.
There were times in the new movie that really kind of got me, where he come in and he just like brutally murders her parents. And I was like, Jesus, this guy is just, he's brutal. And, I really like how he cast Michael Myers, from the kid down to the grown man. I looked at it as, I saw Michael as a little kid, and I'm like, well, this actually kind of would be, how I would see Michael Myers, as a little kid, just this troubled youngster who gets picked on by everybody, and, finally one day he just snaps. But, and then seeing him when he grows up, and, it's just like, well, he never talks anymore, and he wants to hide his face because he thinks he's so ugly, and, he's done these terrible things that he can't remember, and then he's this giant of a man, and, to me, someone, he's physically opposing, and he's very stealthy and scary, and that's kind of how I looked at it, is just kind of like a different Michael Myers in a different universe.
Yeah, so, no, I see where you're coming from. Just to rebut your point there, just you saying all that stuff that happens in the first act of the movie just sounds like the most muddled piece of garbage ever. I'm sorry, I mean, I just had to point that out. But I do agree with you that and that's one of the things I pointed out when I last saw the movie that I really liked, was the physical presence that Tyler Mane brought as Michael Myers in this one. And in case you guys don't know, this is the guy who played Sabretooth in the original X-Men. He's a former wrestler.
He's really,
so I think that was a good casting choice.
He's an everyman.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of an everyman.
But with that being said, I think we should move on to the probably what most people would consider to be the worst Rob Zombie film. Now, all I'm going to say about this movie, I mean, I try to make a point for every movie, but all I'm going to say about this is I saw this movie when it first came out on DVD, put it in, started watching, okay, all right, whatever. Okay.
Did you have to brighten your screen up?
Yeah. God, yeah, that's one thing I do remember is a dark movie. But my point is that the movie was so unmemorable and so bad that I don't even remember the plot. I remember Michael Myers coming out of the van and being not dead and all this garbage. And then I mean this movie is so bad that I don't even remember it. So I've seen it once, and so I'm not even going to try to debate with you on this one, because I honestly don't even remember it being that good from what I saw. So I know you have some points.
Yeah, here, of course. Here's a few things that I had. Here's a few problems I had with it to begin with. And this goes back to that drive-in movie, phenomenal drive-in movie experience that I've had with a few really good movies later on, but this was a movie that I saw at the drive-in. And, if for those of you out there who've never had the drive-in experience, don't. It might have been cool back in the 70s and 80s where everybody was really respectable, and everybody left before the next movie started, not right in the middle of it, and et cetera, but I'm not going to go into that, more than I have. But I saw this at the drive-in, and I just remember staring at the screen and not being able to see a thing because it was so dark. The cinematography was so dark, and the parts that weren't that dark, I was so confused about what was going on that I couldn't fathom, I really, in a sense, I felt like I may have been missing this masterpiece of a film, because it seemed like the subtle parts of it seemed so okay and so thought provoking.
There's nothing subtle really about Halloween 2. Yeah. There's nothing. Okay. Another problem just real quick, another problem I had was the shaky cam cinematography at the end of Halloween 1. And that is carried on to the whole movie of Halloween 2. It is just undecipherable in my opinion. Like, it's just like Bourne Legacy, but not interesting, and you can't see it. So that's all I'm gonna. I think we've said enough about that. So moving on.
There was You're ushering me out the door.
Dude, the movie's just gonna piss me off more and more.
I know. I really wanted to go just a tad.
Go ahead.
You know, there was a few things that stuck out for me from the movie. One is like this unbearable plot of stuff that nobody cares about. It's just this boring plot. Michael Myers goes into hiding. You know, he kills random rednecks for food. I don't understand what's going on. But there was one, when I finally watched it on DVD, I made it through, and I just remember not really understanding what I watched, you know, and so I went back and I watched it again, and then I got to the scene where, you know, she's having a nightmare, I guess, and she's just, for like 3 straight minutes, she's just yelling, "Fuck you, you fucking bitch," like for like 3 minutes. Like I timed it almost. I didn't really time it, but it felt like a good 3 minutes. She was just screaming this. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I just cut the film off. Now we can leave.
All right. So that's, I think, all that needs to be said. So moving on, the reason why we're doing this discussion on Rob Zombie is because he has a new film coming out, like you mentioned, this weekend called Lords of Salem. Now, again,
Exactly.
Sherry Moon Zombie is, again, the lead in this movie, which is, again, one of the things I'm kind of skeptical about. But with that being said, did you get to watch the trailer, of course, right, or no?
Yeah, I saw the trailer.
Okay.
It kind of seems like he revisited his first film a little bit with House of a Thousand Corpses. Essentially,
Yeah.
It didn't have the strange, icky looking cinematography and vision that he had for that one, but it kind of returns to this, and plus he's paying for this one out of pocket again, so it's being done kind of cheaply made.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at the reviews, and so far everybody's kind of split right down the middle.
Yeah.
And that's normally the way it is with a Rob Zombie film. It's either you really like the film or you really just hated the film because you just really didn't understand it.
Unless it's Halloween
really gonna
too.
Try and oh God. Oh, stop.
All right, sorry.
No, you're fine. But it's I just can't get that cinematography out of my head now. It's just so dark. Like, I remember sitting there, like, adjusting my television, and I was like, I still can't see, damn it. Okay, that's enough. God. Jesus, it's so bad. Okay.
All right, Lords of Salem.
Yeah, I know. But, he pretty much casts everybody who he normally casts for his movies. Sid Haig's in there. Bill Moseley's not in there, and I think if he cast him, he might have gotten a little bit more for his money, with him being in there. But, like you said, Sherry Moon Zombie's back, of course. Sid Haig's in there shortly. It's kind of this weird, I guess this weird film about, a radio DJ who gets something from some mysterious person who's apparently somebody from the past, from like the Salem witch trials or something. So
yeah,
it's probably
he basically gets an invite, this radio DJ from a band called the Lords of Salem, and to play a gig, and he says, put this on the air, and we want a bunch of people to be there. And so I guess supposedly the actual Lords of Salem show up, whatever that is supposed to be. But I mean, that's one of the things that goes to my point is the trailer, at least for this movie, was very, very cryptic. I mean, there's some real abstract stuff going on in there. People just standing there and just kind of staring into camera. And of course, Sherry Moon Zombie has some weird makeup on. But I mean, at least for me,
poster cover.
Yeah, exactly. And at least for me, this movie looks like it's going to, like you said, kind of go back to his roots and go back to that striking visual imagery, because a lot of the stuff in trailer was like, wow, I posted it in the group and I was like, wow, this is kind of interesting. I didn't expect this, even though, like you said, from what the reviews I've seen I hear the story is it's pretty thin,
Right.
pretty spaghetti thin on this. But,
I think that's his problem. I think that's a problem he has is, with some of his original, like House of a Thousand Corpses and holy shit, going right back to it, Halloween 2, it's like this razor thin story that, you can't really, or you can he tried. Actually, I'm not going to say that Halloween 2 had a razor thin story as opposed to it tried to have this really deep story and just was absolute garbage. But, God, we can't get off of that, can we?
Nope.
But, I think it's a real, him going back and being like, I'm going to make the movie I want to make, which is all he's ever really done anyways. I'm going to make the movie that I want to make. I don't care if you like it or not. Either you're going to watch it or either you're not going to watch it. And
I think there's something to be said though too. Going to that point is that at least Zombie's coming back with original films. It's not based off of any existing material. It's not a prequel. Exactly. It's not a sequel. It's not a remake. It's not a reboot. Yeah. It's its own thing, and I have to applaud him for doing his own thing. So I think that there's enough to be said there for that though. So.
If he keeps doing his own thing, I think eventually he'll get it right. Essentially you have to come into your own stride. And I can say that he's put out three, he's put out 2 really good movies, a third decent movie, a really garbage movie, and this one, might go just be good. It might be worth a watch or two. I'll probably go check it out. Well, I can't go check it out. It's in limited release. Yep. So, that was another thing too is, he pulled that same thing that he did with House of a Thousand Corpses, this limited release stuff, which I don't really think you should do that ever. I guess he really felt like he wasn't going to make a lot of money, so he didn't want to release it on a national scale and fail.
Exactly, so because distribution, it's very costly, But I will go
promote this at all.
No, so. but it's been at festivals and stuff, and the thing with limited release is it's kind of they've been doing this a lot with like movies like The Master that came out last year. A lot of the awards movies they do what's called the platform release, so it'll start in 4 theaters for one weekend, and then if it does well, it'll go to 16, and then it'll go to 100, and then it eventually goes up and up until where it's it's nationwide. But I just hope this movie does good. I think there's a lot of good stuff left in Zombie. I think he's got some interesting stuff going on there. I just hope he has someone start writing scripts for him, and he doesn't write his own scripts. That's the thing.
And in case you guys didn't know, and me being a Rob Zombie music fan, actually, from when I was. Well, from now too, I still like a lot of his stuff now. Some of his older stuff I revisit, but in case you guys didn't know, this is actually a name of one of his songs, is The Lords of Salem. And the song actually talks about, him going into, him seeing all the weird visuals from Salem and et cetera, et cetera. But, I think we pretty much covered him right now, but, I'm going to say that I hope, even if he's not putting out the best stuff, I really hope he continues to make his own stuff, because that's the important thing, is never losing sight of who you are. And I have to applaud him for that.
Yep.
And, but I think it's time to go ahead and sign off. And, I will leave you with the end stuff if you want to send us out and I'll sign us off.
All right, so of course I gotta plug the email if you guys want to contact us in any way, or if you actually wanted to be added to the Facebook group that kind of this whole idea spawned from, you just email movienerdsmailbox@gmail.com. If you're interested in joining the group, make sure to say that you saw the podcast and that you're interested in joining, and we'll go ahead and add you on Facebook. So with that being said, I am Taylor Salem.
And I'm Tommy Bolden. And please be sure to leave your questions and comments below. Yes. And we are currently also working on a Tumblr page. We're moving up in the world. Maybe Twitter soon after. Who knows? But I don't know why anybody would want to follow us on Twitter. But, what are we going to tweet about?
We're also working on an iTunes feed as well for you people that like to listen to the audio versions of podcasts. You can listen to it on your iPod when you're going to work or whatever. So that's in the works. I'm still going to work a few kinks out, but hopefully hopefully that'll be up within the next few weeks or maybe a month or so. So with that being said,
Exactly.
I think we'll go ahead and tune out for now. You have a good night, Tommy.
Subscribe here, or there, or back there, somewhere. We'll put it somewhere, maybe even right here. But enjoy, and good night.